Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with a new knife discussion video about a series of knives that is very near and dear to me. That's the 0392 line from Zero Tolerance. The 0392 line is a series of what they call factory custom knives that are a collaboration with custom knife maker Rick Hinderer. Rick Hinderer makes a knife called the Eclipse that comes with this exact same handle shape and a very unique tanto blade. Those are really cool knives, but they're very, very limited production, and he doesn't make them very often or make them available to the public, so those are very hard to get your hands on. So he collaborated with ZT to make a series of limited production, factory custom, essentially mid-tech knives, and they're available at very similar prices to the standard Hinderer model Eclipse. But I wanted to talk about these knives today because this is really my favorite series of knives, maybe of any company right now. And I really want to appreciate the work that has gone into this and share my thoughts with you guys and see what you think, because this series is sort of controversial right now. And the reason for that is, as you can see, they have developed multiple iterations of this knife. I think now with the purple-black Wharncliffe, this is the most recent edition. They've done 6 different variations. When the knife initially came out, it came out in a form with a plain stonewashed titanium handle. It had this harpoon drop point blade shape with a stonewashed finish and blue anodized titanium hardware. And the understanding was that that knife was going to be limited production and may or may not ever be made again and be a rare collector's piece that might go up in value, etc., etc. So, when Zero Tolerance announced that they were going to have a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth version of this knife, and as we know at this point there will be more iterations coming out, some people got, for lack of a better term, butthurt because they wanted a special rare knife and maybe they wanted to sell it one day for a profit. Now, I want to discuss that sort of aspect of things. I think that it is okay to sell a knife for profit. That is fine. I think if it's a rare blade, putting a small little extra profit on it is fine. What I don't find okay is when people buy knives, and the purple black is an excellent example of this. This knife is $400 from the store. Everyone paid the same price, $400. As a matter of fact, as of today, October the 14th of 2016, this knife is still available on goinggear.com. They have over 10 in stock right now, which is mind-boggling. We'll talk more about that in a second. But some people who buy these knives buy them specifically to flip them on the secondary market for a huge profit. There are 2 of these knives on sale for around $800 on eBay right now. And that is just absurd to me. That's ridiculous. I can understand selling this for $425, $450, trying to just generate a little bit of extra revenue so you can keep buying knives. But, you know, once you go up above that kind of a profit margin, you're really just kind of being an ass. And that's not cool to me. I try to sell all of my knives more or less at cost. You know, maybe I'll make a $10 or $20 profit, but I'm not making any kind of hundreds of dollars on any of the knives that I sell. So I really don't like that about those people. In any case, back to the series of knives. So they've made 6 iterations of it, and why have they done that? Well, that's because ever since the very first edition, these knives have basically sold out within seconds. I remember I bought this knife, the very first one, because it was available on the Zero Tolerance site. I saw that, and I was able to get in on that very quickly because I had a fast internet connection, but the site slowed down, it chugged. I really didn't know I was going to get this for a few minutes as that little indicator just spun and spun, waiting for that to process. But it did go through and I did get it. But this knife sold out within a matter of seconds. And I'm talking, you know, between 30 and 90 seconds. However many of these ZT made commercially available to the United States, they were just gone within seconds. And the same was true of all the other iterations. The Wharncliffe version, the original Wharncliffe, I bought this one on Blade HQ. I had all of my credit card information registered on there, so I was able to get it. But I remember that I clicked by it, and I had it within about 8 seconds. You know, I was timing it because I wanted to go fast. I was clicking refresh, clicking refresh. It came up, click, 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 bought with all of my info, 8 seconds. And I went back to the home page, sold out. 8 seconds. Unbelievably fast. So this model has just had very high demand, but it's finally, I think, reached a point where everyone who really wanted one has gotten it, maybe gotten a couple of them, and this one took a few days to sell out on most retailers and somehow is still available even a week afterwards. Today is 8 days after this went on sale, and there are still some copies available. So why is this knife so popular? What made this knife so special that everyone went out and bought it in 8 seconds? Well, as I mentioned before, it's a collaboration with custom knife maker Rick Hinderer. Rick Hinderer is known for his very high quality XM18 and Eclipse models. This is my XM18 Fatty Warncliffe edition. I am really in love with this knife. I see where people get the appreciation for Hinderer knives. It's overbuilt, it's tough, it's strong, it's thick, it's beefy. Now this is a fatty edition, but all of the rest of the materials can be found on other regular Hinderers. Super strong construction, super high quality, a lot of good fit, finish, and function going on there. Love, love, love that knife. That one's not going anywhere. So in taking that from Hinderer, Zero Tolerance applied its own brand of smoothness, of fit and finish, and of action. And I think that's the critical thing to understand about these knives. The Hinderers, and I'll demonstrate that here, are known for their questionable action. Now, they've tuned that. This is the most recent generation of knives. So if you know how to push button that thing the right way, it's going to open every time. If you even light switch it, it's going to open, but you can see a little bit more slowly. To the untrained flipper, it's very easy to not get full lockup. This one has a pretty good detent, so there you go. You can see it's easy to get that. But when Rick Hinderer handed its knives to Zero Tolerance has a perfect detent system. It has a ball bearing pivot system that just allows it to, at the point that you break that detent, whoa, it's going to fly open because it's a much stronger detent. You really have to push on it, and eventually it breaks, and it's going to fly open every single time. Even with my inexperienced knife friends, these knives fly open every single time, and they lock up every single time. So in mixing these two bloodlines, ZT and Hinderer, you get what I think is the best of both worlds. You could argue that this is the Blade, and I'm talking Wesley Snipes, of the knife world, where it gets all the benefits of both of its parents and none of the drawbacks. So what is this knife like functionally? Well, it's a 3.5-inch blade. All of them are the same length. Obviously, they have different blade grinds, but that's the right size for me. I'm a full-grown 6-foot man, and I think that 3.5 inches is my sweet spot for knives. And I think that most people who buy pocket knives, especially in this market, are males, and the bigger the knife, I think the more attractive it's going to be. I think that the construction is second to none. The titanium handles with the custom anodized and custom done hardware by Rick Hinderer is just appealing universally to all knife fanatics. And then to have Zero Tolerance apply their own blade shapes to these. So as I mentioned before, the original Hinderer Eclipse is available in a simple, not a simple, but a Tanto version only, as far as I can tell. Now, I've seen comments on some forums that there are Eclipses available with other blade grinds, but I have not seen pictures of those. So correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments and show me where I might find some of those knives. But Zero Tolerance has taken the liberty of adding their own blade shapes, so you will never find an Eclipse that's got this beautiful harpoon drop point edge on it. It's not going to happen. And this blade shape in particular might be the best of them all because it's the most functional and it may be the strongest engineered, because the Tanto here, not the Tanto, the Warncliffe that they copy from Rick Hinderer is actually slightly modified as well, but it's a very fine tip, and so this is not going to be universally useful to every person. It works well in most of my EDC cutting tasks, but I still find myself carrying other knives if I'm anticipating using it for anything more than paper cutting or tape cutting. What else makes this knife really special is the materials used. Obviously, I mentioned the handle scales and the blade shape, but the materials are second to none. The original knives are available in CTS 204P, which is the absolute best steel grade out there. It's similar to Bowler M390 as well as CPM 20CV. All of these steels have very similar chemistries, and they are designed for excellent edge retention, ease of sharpening, as well as extreme corrosion resistance. And I can vouch for that. I've had this knife for a year now or so, and I've carried it. I've sweat it with it on me. I've got it wet. I've cut food. I've done everything. Absolutely no corrosion whatsoever. In fact, the blade steel is so strong that it doesn't show any wear. I've broken down boxes. I've cut through a lot of stuff with this, and there's no evidence of any wear on this knife. Even on the finish, they've done an excellent job on that. Now, I've applied my own 17 degrees per side edge. Actually, I had my buddy do that for me and bring it to a mirror polish, and the 204P can really handle that. All the other iterations, including the original Wharncliffe, were done in 204P. The most recent iteration, though, is excitingly also is done in M390 steel. I really, really like that they even go so far as to change up the blade steel. So, when I originally saw that this knife was for sale, I didn't want to buy it, but when I learned it was in M390, I wanted to have it because it was just that little bit difference where I could appreciate the fact that they changed it. So we've talked about the quality in terms of the fact that it's Hinderer ZT collaboration. We've talked about the high-grade materials in terms of the blade and the handles. Continuing that discussion, the hardware is all custom made by Rick Hinderer. So that's what makes this a factory custom knife. So Zero Tolerance produces the handle scales. This is the same shape that is on the original Eclipse. They must have gotten the CAD software and they generate these in their own factory. ZT makes the blades out of their own steel and with their own designs, but Hinderer supplies all of the hardware, all of the screws, the clip, the pivot, which is their proprietary pivot system, the over travel discs, and on this version in particular, you get a steel flame copper filler tab. The Steel Flame is a company that's associated with Hinderer there that creates some awesome knife and flashlight accessories. But each one of these knives comes with a unique combination of the ZT and the Hinderer hardware. And so that's also something really special. And what you can do is, if you have enough versions of these, you can create a Franken knife. So if I really felt the urge to do this, I could take the black hardware from this and put it on here and have a completely murdered out knife and have purple on here. Likewise, I could switch any one of these knives, hardwares, and create a new look. Moreover, Rick Hinderer makes hardware available for all of these knives on his site and on other sites. So Eclipse hardware is available at all times to pick up. He of course has the filler tabs from his XM18 series clips. I bought this copper over travel disc, separately for this knife. It fits just fine. And so the customization options with all that nice hardware are also really, really nice. So that is where a lot of this appeal comes from. And that's just the specs and the paperwork. Once you get these knives in hand, it's a completely different story, and you have to understand why that's so special. I let Nick Shabazz borrow this knife for a review, and his one great component of this knife was the action. And across the board, these knives have spectacular action. This knife is fresh out of the box. This is I have 2 copies of this knife. These are not both mine. Before you start to get upset, this knife was limited 1 per customer. This is going to my buddy Nico. He bought this and had it shipped to me because he couldn't get it shipped to Greece, and so I'm shipping it to him. But this is out of the box. and it just goes down like that, and the action is just absolutely perfect. The D10 is incredible. I don't want to use this one too much. This is his knife. I want it to break in. This one is my knife. I've been carrying this for a few days, about a week now, and the action is just out of control. It's even smoother. It's broken in a little bit. Every single one of these knives has an absolutely perfect action. You're going to open it every single time. We talked about the detent and how perfect it is compared to the Hinderer. I just really, really love that. You can't get enough of that solid flipping action, that lockup, and the way that it feels in the hand. The ergonomics on this knife are excellent. If you've ever held a Hinderer Eclipse or one of these things, you'll just understand that your fingers fall into the grooves naturally. You get good grip on that mild jimping down here at the bottom. There's no hot spot on the back of the handle. There's no silly jimping or anything sticking into your hand there. And the thumb divot right here is perfect for applying pressure on the knife for stronger cutting tasks. The one thing that I will give a knock on this knife for that I actually like about the Hinderer, now that I have this in my possession, is the forward finger choil. I really, really like a forward finger choil, and not every knife needs to have one, but I just feel like I get a better sense of control with this if I'm doing a really fine cutting task, or if I want to really power through something and want that grip. But perhaps that is just the difference between the Hinderer, the true Hinderer, and this line. The true Hinderers, I think, are built more for real hard use, and these knives are a little bit more targeted towards the knife fanatics out there. Now, the original version in the Stonewash probably is the most EDC friendly version of this knife. The remaining versions all have sort of fancy finishes and high satin grinds and DLC coatings, things that you may not want to use in a very heavy EDC roll. Instead, some of these will probably become safe queens. I carry all of my knives. I like to use it. This DLC coating has held up pretty well so far. I did put a small mark on it. I'm not sure if I'm going to get the camera to show it here. I got a small mark. Actually, when I was comparing this to the Hinderer, I kind of touched the two knives together. Maybe you can see it right here. Just a small mark. The metal on metal kind of made that happen. But that's okay. You know, I don't mind. I'm not that OCD that I would get rid of it because of a single mark. I really enjoy carrying these knives, and they're going to show some spots. So I just want to conclude by just saying that I'm a huge fan of the 0392 lineup. Some people are upset that they continue to come out with these new versions of them, making the earlier versions less and less rare. But again, I am not a flipper. I'm not trying to make a huge profit on these things. I think knives are made to be used and carried, and they really should be. I can't say enough about how special this series of knives really is. They are comfortable in hand, they're super high quality, they're made to exact precision, and they're made here in the US of A. So how are you gonna be mad about that? So what do you guys think about these knives? Are you one of the lucky few that owns them and are totally satisfied with the way that they feel and the way that they carry? Or are you one of the people that are upset that they're making multiple versions of this knife? I want to make this a discussion because I want Zero Tolerance to know that most people are very, very happy with them, and like me, want them to continue making new iterations of these knives with some special combinations. You know, I was a huge fan of this brown one. I really, really like this blade shape the most. It seems like they're probably done making this blade shape, and maybe they're going to do some more Hinderer style blade shapes like the Bowie or the Skinner, so we'll see about that. But I would just love to see more versions, and I want to buy more versions. And one day I'm going to make this into a Franken knife. Somehow this is going to turn into some special knives if I can get the right combination of pieces. So that's going to wrap it up for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like my channel, click like and subscribe. I'm going to be making a lot more videos in the future. These two knives are about to ship off to Greece, so across the Atlantic they go, so say goodbye to them. These two are going to stay in my collection for a long time, I think. Thanks for watching, guys. This is Dr. Frunkey saying take care.